With Deus Ex Mankind Divided coming out this month, I thought I'd check out some of the advertising online. After all, I thought Eidos advertising with Human Revolution was excellent, especially with their launching of the Serif Industries website and then the hack on it by the Purity First movement. Me being a web guy, I thought that was a nice touch. Last year, Mankind Divided had a bit of a hiccup with the pre-order bonuses, where tiers were unlocked based on how many people pre-ordered, and the 5th tier being a 4-day early release. But you could only choose from one of the tiers at the time of pre-order. Yeah, that was a kerfuffle. Instead, Eidos gave all the pre-order tiers to those who have already pre-ordered. This is because Eidos, owned by Square Enix, is a relatively good company and they listen to their fans. It's a shame that their Ask JJB segments have stopped, their videos on their new Mankind Divided YouTube page are somewhat decent, and generally all their social media has been regulated to Facebook and Twitter. So it doesn't really surprise me a bit when other users on Twitter have some beefs with their simple advertising strategy this time around. Unfortunately, it's not the amount or quality of media, it's the content that's annoying them. Apparently, one promotional banner artwork threw the Twitterverse into a tizzy because it sprouted the sign of Augs Lives Matter during a protest scene. Never mind, Augs is a poor choice of grammar, and we can understand that a divide between augmented people and normal people is one of the major themes of the game. It's just a quick way of describing the scenario of a protester's message in a quick visual way. It's effective, it's simple, it works. But because another real-life movement, Black Lives Matter, which is essentially a racist, Marxist terror group who wants to kill cops, white people, and they demand money from the government. Let's not forget they were founded on the death of Trayvon Martin, who initiated violence against a Hispanic man, George Zimmerman, by punching him in the face, knocking him over, sitting on top of him, and bashing his head against the pavement until Zimmerman shot him in the chest. Zimmerman was found not guilty of second-degree murder. Lately, it's been found out that cops have been killing more white people than black people kill more black people than white people kill black people, and there are more black people in prison because they commit more crimes than white people because of various cultural, political, and familial conditions. This is an asinine group founded on misplaced feelings of reality, a lack of understanding of statistics, and based on a trial that should never have happened. Check out their list of demands for a good laugh. Lately, they've been setting gas stations on fire, vandalizing, shouting like idiots, and killing themselves. This is not a group worthy of respect. Enter Manvver Heir. Mr. Heir is a gameplay designer at BioWare Montreal for Mass Effect Andromeda, and he felt the need to communicate to Andre Vu, the global executive brand director of Deus Ex Mankind Divided at Eidos Montreal. Isn't that the whole point? Advertising and marketing cannot give proper context. It's a bad look to advertise using this. So why is it bad to use loaded words here? I think it's rather clever, especially in advertising. You can give multiple meanings very quickly in a visual or audio media. Would you rather advertising only have the one meaning? Okay, maybe, but what's wrong with loaded words in this case? Considering Deus Ex has always been a story about conspiracies and people caught within them, what's wrong with the major and minor themes of the story? In the advertising, told in a way that can resonate with people. Doesn't that give some proper context? How much more context do you need in this scene? Do you not understand what's going on here? And if it resonates in a negative context, great. That's the point. Would you rather it not resonate at all? In fact, if you're looking for context, wouldn't that motivate you even more to check out the game? And how is Eidos looking bad here in this creation? They already have a mechanical apartheid in their story. It's a world full of discrimination. That's the story they're actually telling. Discrimination based on being cybernetic, with martial law. Do you get this yet? Those are the themes. The advertising is showcasing that. What's your problem? This is the stuff I don't get about these kinds of people. They're talking about the issue these folks are so sensitive about, and that's somehow bad? Writing the game for 5 years makes no difference. I didn't criticize that the game tackling issues such as this in a game context. Okay, so if the game is in fact about discrimination based on groups, being a futuristic soft science fiction story where the setting allows for these social conflicts to be addressed and understood by the audience, why are you against this marketing content? This should be something you should be lauding as a good example of what games can do. You work at BioWare, right? Oh. Are you claiming that Black Lives Matter and Augs Lives Matter are unrelated and a coincidence? Yes. Hey, Mr. Heir, it's a complete coincidence. End of story. But he goes on. You are evading the question. If it's a fictional world, why not make a fictional slogan or group that doesn't sound the same? No, he actually answered the question, but hey, we'll entertain you because you're so entertaining. While yes, it is a fictional world, they did invent a fictional group of people called augments or augs. Yes, there's a theme of discrimination that's parallel to reality, kinda. That's usually what makes it good. I'm kind of curious what more this guy wants here. I mean, I don't get the problem with a simple slogan. I mean, does he have family in Black Lives Matter? Is there a trademark? Did they trademark Augs Lives Matter? And if not, then what's the big deal? I mean, do they dislike the advertisement for a game they're never going to play? Do they actually wear like Che Guevara t-shirts or something? Whose horse and where is it in all of this? I'm all for criticizing media, be it the game content and the movies, some of their advertising, but what's the real problem here? If I made like a Wolfenstein game and I had advertisements that said Hail Hitler or swastikas or whatever, that would certainly turn a few heads, and I think it's illegal in certain countries to do that. But that's the point. It's to shock people. If I make a game about being a Nazi or killing Nazis, then yeah, it's pretty clear, accurate advertising, right? The show Archer had a secret agency called ISIS. Then actual ISIS rises in the world. Archer changes their agency. Same idea. Okay, sure, but that's a comedy show. You can make fun of ISIS. I don't know how the Archer people handled that, but that seems like a prime opportunity to make some really good jokes on the show. And this is actually the opposite of Black Lives Matter, since the artist behind Archer made that acronym for the company the show takes place in before the terrorist group was a real thing. No single entity has a monopoly on letters or acronyms in the English language, especially fictional ones. There was no need to change the name of the agency, and the same goes for this advertisement. And this is Canada, folks. But Mr. Heir wasn't the only one who thought this. Enter the Jimquisition. I'll choose a few here because he tends to make mountains out of molehills. Exactly what is Eidos doing trying to explore its sensitive societal themes when it's that fucking clueless about them? If you lack the ability to know or understand even basic problems associated with the subject you're trying to tackle, maybe you're actually the wrong people for the job. Maybe you should just focus on making a game about a gravel-voiced man with robot sunglasses. Well, that's a lot of hyperbole because we know they can actually write and deal with mature themes. Maybe not as well as some of us would like, but they can do it. And for one, they don't actually care about Black Lives Matter. They're not telling a story about them, nor should they. They're talking about discrimination of augments in a world where augmented lives are fighting against the rest of humanity, or in some cases. Acceptance, freedom, liberty, all that stuff. We don't know exactly in what context. We don't know if there's going to be a Martin Luther King figure, although I wouldn't hold it against them if there wasn't. And considering the story was written years ago, and there's multiple teams, and not everyone is associated with the marketing of a multi-million-dollar piece of interactive new media, I gotta say, just calm down, Jimmy boy. It's just advertising. I should point out that there's nothing inherently wrong with allegory. Fantasy and science fiction have explored the societal problems facing real world for decades, often quite successfully, and there's little doubt that Marvel's X-Men series has sometimes mirrored racism, ableism, and LGBTQ discrimination admirably, even if inconsistently. But simply taking real-world terminology and bolting it awkwardly into your sci-fi bullshit is slapdash, and anybody with half a brain would have been able to work out that Deus Ex Mankind Divided was headed into a mess of its own making. Jim, I'm really sorry, but I cannot see where you're coming from. I do not see the mess that's going to be happening on the screen when this game comes out, so what the hell are you talking about? Okay, so it's okay for them to actually deal with these similar themes, or at least attempt to, because that's one of the points of art or science fiction, but just not the way you think it should be done. How dare Eidos Montreal market their game any way they like, all because they use the term mechanical apartheid in Augs Lives Matter. I have little doubt Mankind Divided will be a good game overall, and I even expect it to have a pretty good narrative if Human Revolution is anything to go by. Its marketing department needs to pull its head out of its arse, though, and it would only benefit the game if its writers could commit one way or the other. Make it science fiction reflective rather than appropriative. Or bite the Mafia 3 bullet and just straight up talk about actual racism. Science fiction, or fiction in general, can be used for many reasons, in many ways, in ways that no other genre can, and that's all at the discretion of the writer. And I think Mary DeMarle is a pretty decent writer, and she doesn't have to commit herself to anything the marketing department says. Why? How? Is she in charge of every publication they make? I really doubt that. And I think game design does, in fact, get in the way of her writing, as does having a big team where everyone has a say. And we've seen what happens during the last half of Human Revolution. Things just really fell apart there. And of course, there's budget and schedule cuts and all the usual things that happen during development. But to make judgment calls on a soft science fiction issue, on these two minor marketing things, is really childish and overly sensitive. Why can't these people separate themselves from their politics and just look at what's there? It's marketing. It's there to sell a product, and that's all. And there's not much to it. I'm not too impressed this year with Eidos and their marketing of Mankind Divided, but I'll definitely be checking out the game because I know the previous game was good. Even if they didn't have any marketing or a lot of social media content, it's one of those last Canadian video game companies I can appreciate for not having a bunch of lunatics running their monkey house.